Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel, and welcome to the Opera Euro Rapid Chess Tournament 2021. We're back now in the quarterfinal stage. We're now in the second day of the quarterfinals. Yesterday, it was, I think, a great day with great attacking games, with great tactical brilliances, with also great theoretical novelties, in particular openings, which I really liked. We have seen by Magnus Carlsen in the match game against Daniil Dubov some three theoretical novelties that he showed us. Probably Magnus Carlsen saved himself for this event. He really needed to win, especially in after recent losses in many tournaments. So it was now the world champion that we know. We're starting now the second game with the great match game between young Krzysztof Duda against Wesley. So Wesley won the first match game yesterday. In order to make it maybe to the additional games and maybe later to the Armageddon game, young Krzysztof Duda has to be sharp now. He has to attack Wesley, so especially with the white pieces, and hope maybe for a draw with the black pieces. Let's see now what happened in the game one. Here, young Krzysztof Duda played the move c4, knight to f6, knight to c3. We have the English opening, and now after the move e5, we have the reverse Sicilian. G3, we have bishop to b4, bishop to g2, and now castling played by Wesley. So knight to f3, and now from the move e4, the game becomes already dynamic. It's of course a pragmatic idea to create a space advantage, but in long terms, this e4 pawn could be also your weakness, because the problem is now you cannot improve this pawn with potential d5 moves, because you would love to support, of course, your pawn with another pawn and then have the space advantage, but it's not possible because of this c4 pawn. In the game now, knight to g5 was played, and now Wesley gives up the bishop pair in an early stage of the game. But when we come to now computer evaluations, it's already a slightly better game for black, because we have messed up the pawn structure here. Wesley first protects this, a very important pawn, with rook to e8, and now castling played by young Krzysztof Duda, and now h6. And the problem is now you don't have good squares. You have, of course, the move knight to h3. Maybe you can remaneuver the knight on a new square on f4, and maybe then afterwards to d5. But still, temporarily, this knight is a little bit out of game, and Wesley can use now this moment in order to develop very fast with knight to c6. We have knight to f4, and now d6. As we said, we cannot improve this activity with d5. Then I think white will simply take out, and still you're continuing the game with, I think, a vulnerable pawn. So this pawn is basically the whole battle in the game now. The whole strategy for both sides is simply surrounded around the square e4. If Wesley loses this pawn without any compensation, and the compensation could be maybe another pawn or maybe a huge piece activity, then white will probably lose the game. If black manages to stay with the space advantage against some kind of an activity with this two centralized knights, then of course black could be on the winning side. So here knight to d5. Young Krzysztof Duda is trying to simplify the position. It's, I think, a good choice, because we have still the bishop pair from white's perspective. Still, these bishops can get activated. As I said, maybe we can find a different route for our bishop, maybe bishop to a3, playing somehow around the square e4, because so far the e4 is really annoying here to handle the space advantage that black has created. Here bishop to e6, knight takes f6, and now queen to f6. And here the problem of whites, I think, here is that Wesley is fully developed. He has now finished the three stages of the opening. I've mentioned it many times, but of course I'll mention it again. The three stages of the opening are of course developing of minor pieces, securing the king by castling, and removing the queen from the first rank and get the rook connection. You see now Wesley is fully developed. He has still his space advantage. He still has, of course, a nice activity, but the problem is now the pawn on e4. And here young Krzysztof Duda, as we said, he has now the opportunity to take bishop to e4, but now bishop to h3 was played by Wesley. And here comes, I think, the first really critical moment of the game. Here young Krzysztof Duda played, I think, a blunder, bishop to d5. Although you want to stay, of course, with your light square bishop, you still can continue with the bishop pair. Giving up the rook for the exchange is a possibility, but it doesn't bring you so much. I think it would be possible if this bishop would be active, if this bishop would be somehow here liberated, maybe on this diagonal, but here the d2 pawn and c3 pawn are standing simply in the way. That's, I think, a huge problem now for for white. White cannot develop these bishops in active fashion here. After move bishop to h3, the best way is probably to proceed with bishop to g2. After trades of bishops, we can maybe create this double attack, attacking the weak e2 pawn and also the weak c4 pawn. Here after rook to e1, we can maybe take out, but now queen to b3, queen to a3, d3, something like knight to e5 and bishop to f4, maybe queen to c6 can be played, and now king to g1, maybe knight to g6. This is now the suggested line by the engine, and maybe retreat now with the bishop here to e3. And as I said, this would be playable. It's an equal game for both sides, but giving up, I think, this rook like this without any compensation, I'm not sure if we can call this a compensation, because as we said, this bishop is not good, it's not developed, so I don't think that young Krzysztof Duda gained anything. And again, young Krzysztof Duda is risking without really a need to do that, because yesterday we saw he played really an aggressive line, which was really a bad line, and again he's risking against Wesley So, and we know how Wesley So he's a great player, he's an experienced player. Now the evaluation is +1 for black, and I think Wesley So can be really satisfied with the outcome of this particular opening. So knight to a5, we have e3, c6 kicking away the bishop, bishop to g2, now a6, trying some b5 moves, trying to get rid of this annoying c4 pawn. We have a4, which again was a new mistake by Jan Krzysztof Duda. Here I think Wesley So tricked a little bit Jan with this aggressive setup, a6 and c6. Of course, Jan Krzysztof Duda is preventing this idea, but I think it was really time to develop now the dark square bishop, although you cannot play maybe here this a5 move, but still maybe black could try b5, but still this bishop is very active, so maybe bishop to a3 here with ideas rook to b1. At least these bishops are working all over the board, but now with the move a4 again, Jan Krzysztof Duda lost the tempo here, queen to g6. We have e4 and now knight to b3. You see Wesley So got rid of the bishop pair. Now I don't think that white has anything here. It's simply a rook versus bishop middle game. It's a much better here position for black. b5, finally getting this pawn breakthrough. e5, liberating the light square bishop, but it's a little bit too late. We have b takes c4, bishop to c6, and again Wesley So tricked here Jan Krzysztof Duda. Rook to b8, you can maybe take out the rook, but now you get to this one. It's a completely lost game now for white. Here rook to a1, rook takes c1, rook takes c1, and now after d takes e5, we have now a new position in which of course white has the rook and the bishop for the queen, but it's simply not enough. Here also black has here a 4 versus 3 pawn majority on the king side. So what black needs to do is simply open the position in front of the king, somehow secure the king, and it's game over here for Jan Krzysztof Duda. a5, we have queen to d3, rook to e1, queen takes d2, we have rook to e5, but now here Wesley So takes another pawn, rook to e7, king to f8. Now two pieces are hanging, you have to retreat. Now g6, creating some breathing spaces for the king, and now bishop to c6, and now queen to b3. You see we have now this pass pawn, rook to e8, not a problem, we still can escape. Rook to c8, c3, bishop to e4, and now queen to e6, and in this position Jan Krzysztof Duda resigned. You can maybe take out this pawn, but you lose the bishop and it was game over. So I'm not sure why Jan is risking so much. He should have played, as I said, this move bishop to g2, especially if you don't have a compensation. You see, I don't think that white gained anything by sacrificing the rook for the exchange. Without activity, this exchange sacrifices are not possible. Okay, this was still a great game, I think, by Wesley So. You see, he tricked, I think, a couple times here, Jan Krzysztof Duda in the game. Wesley So is now one tiny little step, I think, far away from the semi-final stage. He needs only maybe one more win and it's game over then for Jan Krzysztof Duda. We'll see now what will happen, but I don't think that Jan can recover from this. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Really wild stuff. Wesley So is in top shape. As I said in the beginning of my coverage of this tournament, in my opinion, Wesley is even considered to maybe be even the winner of this tournament. We'll see what will happen. Magnus is also playing very, very strongly. As I said, this will be a beautiful, beautiful continuation of the tournament. So, okay, meanwhile, you can watch my other covered games from this tournament so far. Here's the link, and if you want to see maybe some other content, you can also check out my best chess games of all time series and also my covered games by top engines. Here are the links, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and just the best, of course.